It's Jenny with Easterseals. I am here today to talk to you about getting reinforcers back from your student. So we know that sometimes when reinforcement time ends, it can be a challenge to get those items back. So we wanted to give you some tips and a couple of ideas on how to get those back and move on with your day. So I have a couple of strategies to show you. The first thing you'll need is a reinforcer. You will be able to figure that out with a preference assessment or observation. We have a whole training over that. If you have questions, it's in the reinforcement training. Once you have your reinforcing item, you hand it over. Well, they would have it. They're in their reinforcement time that they've earned. And when the timer goes off or it's time for them to return the item back to you, you are going to reach your hand out. They place it in your hand. As soon as they place it in your hand, oh, you put it in my hand. Thank you. That was so fast. You can have more time. And you are going to let them have some extra time for giving it back to you so fast. And they're like, oh, putting that in her hand, it wasn't so bad. This is something you have to teach students. It's typically not something that they intuitively do. So it's a process. As we talk about getting reinforcers back, I want to encourage you to think about your relationship with the student. So if you are continually not able to get a reinforcer back from the student, then it sounds like there is a relationship issue there. Perhaps they have a past experience with an adult they didn't trust, and that past relationship is affecting your relationship. You'll know if the handout strategy isn't going to work very well for that student if you reach your hand out and they do this. That means they either have had someone that grabbed their toys away from them in the past, or they've had a rocky relationship with an adult in the past possibly. You may want to try something else. We have another option. So you can use a container as a second option. A couple of reasons you might want to use a container instead of a hand. The container is kind of neutral territory, and so it's not like you taking the item away. They're storing it in this container for a period of time. The other reason is, like I said earlier, if you reach your hand out and they jerk their arm back, you know, I probably need to try a container. So the container can be anything. It has to be big enough for whatever the reinforcing item is. I like clear containers because they can see what's in there. Everything's transparent, out in the open. Then you're just going to sit it while they do some more work and they can see where it is. So there's no hiding, but that's a preference. Any container will work. With your container, you can do one of two things. You can hold it out and say put in, or you can sit it on the table and say put in. The table is, again, more neutral than you holding it in your hand. You will be able to tell with your student if that's something that you need to do. So you say put in, they put the item in, and immediately you put the item in. You can have more time. And you are reinforcing that behavior of putting the item in the container quickly. So for this step, the child will have their reinforcer that they've earned, and the timer ends. You can either hold out the container or you can put the container in and say, put in. In this case, my student missed the box, and that's okay. Just pop it in there, and they put it in. Same thing we did last time. Thank you for putting the item in. You can have some more time. And you are going to reinforce that behavior of putting the toy in the box. If you are still having a difficult time at getting your student to place their reinforcer in the container, I have another strategy you can try. It would be using the promise procedure in conjunction with the container. So you would still have your container, and you would also have an edible item. Typically it's like a Skittle, an M&M. I have Starburst here, unwrapped and ready to go. So what you do is you either hold out or sit your container on the table, say, put in, and as they put it in, you extend your hand with the promised item as they put that in. So we've given you several strategies to try. The first, of course, is holding your hand out, which is the easiest. A second option is to use a container. If that's still a struggle, we've given you the idea of using the promise procedure. But if you're still struggling, like if you're seeing tears, if there's any kind of challenging behavior, yelling, flopping on the floor, any physical aggression, we encourage you to stop and evaluate all of the contingencies around what's happening. So I want to give you an example from when I was a classroom teacher. I had a student and we were working on him returning reinforcers. So we tried the promise procedure, we tried all of these examples that I've given you, and they were not successful at first. Where I had to start with him was he always chose, almost always, the iPad for his reinforcement time. And how I started getting a better relationship with him is when he was on it, I would go and sit by him, and I would sit a little bit closer. And then I started just putting a finger on the iPad while he was playing on it. Didn't pull on it, didn't mess with his game. I just touched the iPad while he played it. And then I started commenting on his game. And eventually, like, he let me touch things on the iPad and was happy I was there, happy I was engaging with him. And we had to start at that very small step, but we worked our way all the way through to the container. And I would say, put in, and he would put the iPad in the container without any challenging behaviors, no meltdowns. So I want to encourage you that if you do have a student where it is super challenging and none of these strategies work, think about the student, think about their skills, think about how you're approaching, and come up with a very specific, individualized plan for that student, because it is possible. So we hope that this video is helpful. If you have any questions, you can reach us through the Project Prepare page. We do. So it's a process. Keep working on, I'm just going to pause there and I'll cut some of that out. Do you think I can cut some of that out? Okay. All right.
If you can't get the
you to stop and evaluate all of the contingencies around what's happening. So I want to exercise to help increase your relationship. And I don't remember what we were doing next.
then you can, I mean, it's up to you. Do you want to say?